On May 15, 2026 at Dover Motor Speedway, Kyle Busch climbed out of his truck after securing his 69th career victory in the Craftsman Truck Series. A reporter from Fox Sports walked up and asked why moments like that never lose their magic. He smiled and said, "Because you never know when the last one is." 6 days later, he was gone. That sentence is not a metaphor. It is not a dramatic flourish tacked on after the fact to make the story land harder. Kyle Busch actually spoke those words in that instant, standing on the front stretch at Dover, covered in confetti with no clue they would become his epitaph. This is the account of his final weeks, his abrupt death, and what the Busch family now faces in the aftermath of one of the most devastating losses in the history of American motorsports. Before diving into what happened, it is essential to understand exactly who was taken, because the statistics alone tell a story that most athletic careers never get close to. Kyle Thomas Busch was born on May 2, 1985 in Las Vegas, Nevada. His father Tom was a mechanic who raced locally on the side. His older brother Kurt, 7 years his senior, had already carved out a Hall of Fame career in NASCAR. The two brothers grew up racing go-karts on makeshift tracks, cul-de-sacs, and parking lots, then moved up to Legends cars at the local Vegas track before graduating to full-bodied late-model competition in 2001. When Kyle was still a teenager, Kurt told the racing world something that turned out to be entirely accurate. "You think I'm a pretty good race car driver? Wait until you see my brother. He's the best driver in the family." Kyle was ready to race at NASCAR's highest level at 16, but a rule change tied to a tobacco settlement forced him to wait until he turned 18. That delay barely slowed his momentum. When he finally got his shot, he made it count immediately and never stopped. By the time of his death, Kyle Busch had accumulated 63 wins in the NASCAR Cup Series, placing him 9th on the all-time victory list. He had 102 victories in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, an all-time record. He had 69 wins in the Craftsman Truck Series, also an all-time record. Add all three together and Kyle Busch won 234 races across NASCAR's 3 National Series, more than any driver in history, 34 wins ahead of Richard Petty, with the next closest active competitor Kevin Harvick sitting at 121. He captured the Cup Series championship in 2015 and again in 2019, both with Joe Gibbs Racing. He won at least one race in 19 consecutive seasons from 2004 through 2023, a streak that has never been matched. He was in his 22nd full-time season in NASCAR's top division at the time of his passing. Known by the nicknames Rowdy and Wild Thing, Busch was one of the most polarizing figures the sport has ever produced. He got into post-race fights, he feuded with fellow drivers, he spoke his mind without any filter. After wins, he would step out of his car and bow to the crowd, leaning into the booze, enjoying every second of it. His fan base called themselves Rowdy Nation and they were fiercely loyal, but underneath the persona was undeniable talent. Even his harshest critics admitted that Kyle Busch could drive anything on any track in any series. That was simply an unchallenged fact of his career. The timeline of Kyle Busch's final weeks is, in retrospect, deeply unsettling. There were signs something was off well before anyone realized how serious it was. May 10, 2026, Watkins Glen International, New York. Kyle was competing in a Cup Series race when near the end of the event, his voice came over the radio asking his team physician, Dr. Bill Heisel, to meet him at the hauler afterward because he wanted a shot. The television broadcast explained that he had been battling a sinus cold all week, one made significantly worse by the intense G-forces and elevation changes of the New York road course. He still finished 8th, his best Cup result of the season, but he was clearly not well. Afterward, speaking to reporters, he addressed his condition directly. "I'm still not great," he said. "The cough was pretty substantial last week." He was downplaying it the way racers always downplay physical discomfort because pushing through pain is so deeply embedded in the culture of the sport that it rarely registers as a warning. May 15, 2026, Dover Motor Speedway. 5 days after Watkins Glen, Kyle Busch lined up for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series Echo Park 200. Whatever illness he was carrying did not show up in his driving. He led 147 laps and won the race, his 69th career Truck Series victory, a record that belongs entirely to him. Standing on the front stretch afterward, Fox Sports correspondent Amanda Busick asked him why winning never gets old. He gave the answer that would follow him into history, because you never know when the last one is. When asked specifically how many more wins he wanted before stopping, his response was just as striking. "You take whatever you can get, man. You never know when the last one is going to be, so cherish them all, trust me." Nobody watching that moment had any reason to read anything sinister into it. It sounded like the kind of thing a veteran athlete says when they have won enough to understand how fragile success can be. It turned out he was saying something more important than anyone realized. May 17, 2026, the All-Star Race. 2 days after his truck win, Kyle started and finished 17th in the NASCAR All-Star race at North Wilkesboro Speedway. It was an exhibition event, no points on the line, but he was there competing, looking like himself to anyone watching. This was the last race Kyle Busch ever started. May 19, 2026. On his son Brexton's 11th birthday, Kyle posted what would become his final message on social media. "Happy birthday, Brexton. Your mom and I are so proud of who you're turning out to be. You're the best kid on and off the track. You amaze us every day. Keep doing what you're doing and there's no limit to what you'll accomplish. Love you, buddy." The post featured photos of Kyle and Brexton together over the years, father and son, racer in training. Nobody knew as they liked and shared that post that it was the last public words Kyle Busch would ever write. Wednesday, May 20th, 2026. Kyle was at the General Motors Charlotte Technical Center in Concord, North Carolina, a facility located next to Hendrick Motorsports off Speedway Boulevard. He was using the Chevrolet Racing Simulator to prepare for the upcoming Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway, scheduled for that Sunday. Simulator sessions have become a standard part of modern race preparation, a way for drivers to dial in their setups and rehearse tracks before a major week. There was nothing unusual about him being there. Around 5:30 p.m., an unidentified man placed a 911 call from the facility. The caller told the dispatcher, "I got an individual that's short of breath, very hot, thinks he's going to pass out, and is producing a little bit of blood, coughing up some blood." He reported that Kyle was on the bathroom floor awake and in serious distress. The caller also asked emergency responders to turn off their sirens upon arrival. Kyle Busch was transported to a hospital in Charlotte. According to multiple people familiar with the situation who spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity, he had become unresponsive during the simulator session before the 911 call was even made. NASCAR CEO Steve O'Donnell later confirmed that Kyle was using the Chevrolet Racing Simulator when he got sick, but was careful to note that there was at that time no known connection between the training activity and whatever caused his medical crisis. "We're not aware at this time of any correlation between the race car, the racing, and what took place," O'Donnell told NBC News. Thursday, May 21, 2026 morning. The Busch family released a statement through Kyle's social media accounts, saying he'd been hospitalized with a severe illness and would not be competing that weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The statement did not name the illness. Most people reading it assumed he would recover. He had broken both legs in a crash at Daytona in 2015 and come back in 3 months to win a championship. He was Kyle Busch. He always came back. Asterisk 5:40 p.m. on May 21, 2026, NASCAR announced his death. The joint statement from the Busch family, Richard Childress Racing, and NASCAR read, "On behalf of the Busch family, everyone at Richard Childress Racing, and all of NASCAR, we are devastated to announce the sudden and tragic passing of Kyle Busch. No cause of death was given. The family asked for privacy and said further updates would be shared when the time was right." Kyle Busch was 41 years old. The reaction that followed was immediate, enormous, and genuinely emotional, not just from the NASCAR community but from across the entire world of sports. Denny Hamlin, who had been Kyle's teammate at Joe Gibbs Racing for years and had been involved in a very public feud with him just months earlier, spoke to Good Morning America and said, "To me personally, I feel like he's the most talented, gifted race car driver that ever stepped in a car." Hamlin also posted on social media, "Absolutely cannot comprehend this news. We just need to think of his family during this. We love you, KB." He called the loss NASCAR's equivalent of losing Kobe Bryant. Brad Keselowski, perhaps Kyle's most fierce on-track rival over the years, offered a tribute that resonated with almost everyone who read it. He wrote, "I made him earn every victory and stole a few from him along the way. We took our shots at each other in the media and on the track, but I'd like to think that somewhere deep down there was an appreciation that we pushed each other to perform at the highest level, even if neither of us would have admitted it. Tonight, I feel a little like the coyote with no more road runner to chase. His loss is all of our loss, but none more so than his family's." Dale Earnhardt Jr. had one of the most complex relationships with Kyle in the sport. Kyle had been let go from Hendrick Motorsports in 2007 specifically to make room for Dale Jr. on the team. The two operated in tension for years, but in a statement after Kyle's death, Dale Jr. revealed that they had worked through it and that it was Kyle who made the first move. "Kyle and I had a really challenging existence for many years, but we luckily took the time to figure out our differences, and that was something he instigated with a conversation in his bus about how we each managed our racing. I was super eager for us to get on better terms, but it was he who made the effort for that to be possible." He added that they had recently been discussing Kyle racing his late model at Hickory that summer, and that they had planned to meet the following Thursday to get his seat fitted to the car. Jimmy Johnson, who spent years as Kyle's teammate at Hendrick Motorsports, said, "Kyle Busch wasn't just one of the fiercest competitors our sport has ever seen. He was one of the most talented race car drivers I've ever shared a track with." William Byron described him as the best mentor you could ever have, adding that Kyle was incredibly unselfish, cared about his people and his family deeply, and helped shape my career into what it is. Ryan Blaney went further than most. "I truly believe Kyle is the greatest driver that our sport has ever seen, and we were lucky to witness it, whether you're a fan or a competitor." Mario Andretti, who had been with Kyle at Indianapolis Motor Speedway just 2 days before his medical emergency, told reporters, "I was with him on Tuesday. It's the shock of my life what happened here." The tributes came from Formula One teams, from IndyCar, from the NHL, the NBA, the WWE, the MLB, and from political figures including President Donald Trump who posted, "The legendary NASCAR driver Kyle Busch tragically and unexpectedly passed away yesterday. He was a true talent who loved NASCAR and its fans. Kyle was a winner." Vice President J.D. Vance also offered condolences, having met Kyle on the campaign trail in 2024. Childress Racing announced immediately that they were suspending use of the number 8. They would instead run the number 33 at Charlotte and beyond. The reason was significant. RCR stated they are holding the number 8 specifically for Brexton Busch Kyle's 11-year-old son, for when he is ready to go NASCAR racing. Kyle himself had spoken about this possibility just before his death. "All records are made to be broken, right?" he said. "Maybe I'm training that young guy that's going to break it, my son, Brexton." Brexton Busch has been racing since 2020 and has already won more than 100 races across various circuits. The number 8 will be waiting for him. One of the questions that emerged in the immediate aftermath was whether the Coca-Cola 600 should be postponed or canceled out of respect. NASCAR CEO Steve O'Donnell addressed this directly when he spoke to media late on Friday, May 22. He described Kyle as an American badass behind the wheel, and made clear that minimal conversations had taken place among RCR, NASCAR, and the family about postponing. Conclusion was unanimous. What minimal conversations did take place between RCR, ourselves, the family, it was, "Kyle Busch would probably be pretty pissed off if we didn't race." So O'Donnell said, "We're going to honor his memory and make sure people know what he was all about. This is not a new position for NASCAR." When Dale Earnhardt Sr. died on the final lap of the 2001 Daytona 500, the sport raced the very next weekend at Rockingham. Rookie Kevin Harvick, driving Earnhardt's car with the number 29 in place of the famous number 3, finished 14th. 2 weeks after that, Harvick won in Atlanta and held up 3 fingers in tribute as he circled the track. Racing has never stopped for death. It never has, and no driver who ever lived understood that culture better than Kyle Busch. Austin Hill was named to drive the number 33 at Charlotte in Kyle's place. Kyle's number 8 was painted fresh on the infield grass entering Turn 1 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The pylon was lit on lap 18 in his honor. Fans gathered at the RCR complex with flowers and gifts, sharing stories of Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is the first active NASCAR Cup Series driver to die since Dale Earnhardt Sr. passed away on the final lap of the 2001 Daytona 500. That is 25 years. A full generation of NASCAR racing passed without losing an active driver at the top level. Now it has happened. Beyond the records and championships, Kyle left behind something more lasting in the people he shaped. His Kyle Busch Motorsports operation, which he ran in the Craftsman Truck Series from 2010 to 2023, developed some of the biggest names in the current Cup Series, including Christopher Bell and Eric Jones. The team won 100 races and 2 championships under his ownership. Off the track, he and his wife Samantha founded the Samantha and Kyle Busch Bundle of Joy Fund, an organization dedicated to advancing access to IVF care, increasing awareness around infertility, and providing support to families navigating those struggles. They fought through infertility publicly and used that experience to help others. Kyle Busch is survived by his wife Samantha, his son Brexton, who turned 11 on May 19, and his 4-year-old daughter Lennix. He is also survived by his brother Kurt, who was inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame in January 2026, with Kyle standing right beside him at the ceremony. His last Instagram post was a birthday message to his son. His last interview quote was about cherishing every win because you never know when the last one is coming. He won his last race, he said the right thing, and then he was gone. You take whatever you can get, man. You never know when the last one is going to be, so cherish them all, trust me. The number 8 is waiting.